In today's video, we're taking a look at the Kinhank Super Game HDD. This 12TB hard drive boasts over 86,000 retro games, and it even has a little bit more.
I got some stuff in here. It's not all strictly legal, but it just might keep you off the wall.
That's right, this has games and emulators for every system you can potentially think of, all the way back from retro gaming to current gaming with Nintendo Switch, which is a little sketchy, even modern day arcade games you would see at a Dave & Buster's. You're not going to believe this, and I'm going to tell you more about it right after this. Howdy friends, it's Michael B. Thank you so much for checking out today's video, and in today's video, we're taking a look at another Kinhank retro game hard drive. I want to say a huge thank you to Kinhank for sending me out the Super Game HDD for the purpose of this review. Now, this is not the first time I've reviewed a gaming hard drive from Kinhank. I previously have reviewed one that I thought was super cool, had a ton of stuff on it, but I did have some issues out of the box as it wasn't exactly all set up and I couldn't do everything I wanted. And there were a few other issues that really kind of got to me about the hard drive, but overall it was a pretty good experience. Let's take a look at this new hard drive and see if it answered some of the issues that I had with the previous hard drive and if you should consider picking it up. But before we get into that, I want to say thank you so much everybody for checking out the video. Guys, I always appreciate the support. This is your first time to the channel, you like what you see, go ahead, subscribe, click the bell for notification, all that YouTube jazz. So guys, here we have the Kinhank 12TB Super Game HDD. As you can see, it doesn't come in the fanciest box. They also sent me a GameSir controller. I've never heard of this company before, but Nostalgia tells me they make pretty good products. Anyways, this is what's included in the box. Gotta tell you, the controller actually feels pretty good. It's designed after the original PlayStation 2 controller. Everything feels pretty good, and I use this and a variety of other controllers, pretty much whatever I wanted during the review. So guys, once you have the HDD plugged into your PC, you're gonna go to your File Explorer. You're going to go down and find Super Game HDD. Now, before you go in, you're going to want to go to the help facts. There's going to be a bunch of Windows install files. So what you're going to do is you're going to want to make sure you already have these on your PC. Most people do. The one that you probably won't is Beba's NUI, which is a text that one of the programs use. So you may need that unless you're super into Photoshop like I am. But anyways, once you confirm you have these or download them, then you're going to go to the Core Type R folder, and it's simple enough. All you got to do is go to Core EXE. System starts up with this fun video image, and then we're going to go right in to the modes, and here we have Hyperspin, Attraction, Techno Parrot. These are where two of your arcade files are going to be located, either under Techno Parrot or Hyperspin. Hyperspin has more of your classic arcade games, while Techno Parrot is your more modern type gaming, the Dave & Buster's type stuff. It has Cody for whatever reason. Then you're going to get into Big Box here and also Retro Bat, where you're going to find your retro games. That's where you want to go to play those. And then right here you've got a file called Play Night, which is going to play your Windows style games. Now, in previous hard drives from Kinhank, Play Night was used, and they said that's how you played your PlayStation 4 games. But it was never PlayStation 4 games. They were always PC games. Here they are labeled as such. So of course we're going to start with Nintendo, and you'll remember that these games all have those decorations on the side. You can actually remove them on this hard drive. Thankfully, all you have to do is go into your settings, advanced settings, and remove decorations, and they're gone. I played a bunch of NES games to make sure the controls work like they should, like Bucky O'Hare, and of course I did my familiar latency testing Of course, with Mega Man 2, getting past the lasers without using the flash, gotta tell you, this was relatively easy. The emulation feels pretty good, controller responsiveness feels pretty good, and I was able to easily surpass these lasers like I usually am, so that it passes the emulation sniff test on this trial run. But I'm gonna tell you, I wasn't fully satisfied, so I wanted to get a little bit more for emulation, so I decided to play some Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, especially after the Paul Tyson fight there the other day, and I gotta say, I had one of the best runs I've ever had on King Hippo. So yeah, the latency is very good for emulation on the Super Game HDD. Of course, I wanted to try out some of the other retro consoles, especially games that were a little bit more challenging, so I went into the Super Nintendo, tested out Star Fox, everything worked like it should, the games look great, play great, had a great time playing this one, and then I wanted to just check out the library and make sure they had some of the greats. So I played my friend B Kong's favorite game, Chrono Trigger, a little bit. Everything worked like it should, and the library is pretty impressive. Everything you could want to play on the Super Nintendo is there. I then moved over and checked out the N64, and you guys know that the game I always use to check out the N64 is in fact GoldenEye. They have the full library, but GoldenEye played exactly like it should. It's almost like an HD version of the N64 game you're playing here. Everything worked like it should, looks good, the sound is great, graphics are great, no glitches, very happy. Then, of course, I wanted to check out some of the other retro cartridge consoles, so I went to the Sega Genesis, played some of my favorites. They actually do great early Genesis games based on movies. Here's Dick Tracy, check that out. And if for some reason you've never played it before, Ghostbusters is an absolute must-play on the Sega Genesis. It looks great here, plays great. So far, the Kin Hank is killing it on the retro consoles. Of course, the big reason you want to get these is the console games can be played anything. You want to play CD-based games, so I checked out the Sega CD, pretty impressive library, and I gotta say, it actually played really well too. Here I am playing one of the most expensive Sega CD games, Kyo Flying Squadron. Then, of course, we're going to check out the Sega Saturn, and they do have the complete Sega Saturn library. One thing I'm going to warn you about here with the Saturn is when you go through RetroBat originally, you're going to have some weird effects where the game seems like it's running at twice the speed it should. You can adjust this in the settings by changing the emulator or moving over to RetroBat. Anyways, the Saturn runs great, and it's such a thrill to have this complete library. Of course, you gotta play some Sega Dreamcast as well. Looks like they've got the entire library here, including some of the more niche RPG games on the console, so very happy with the Dreamcast library, and I'm also very happy with how it plays. Of course, I always bring up Soul Calibur. It was the launch game that I got that I probably put the most time into. And of course, I've also got to go check out Sonic Adventure 2 to see the speed performance graphic-wise. Very happy with how Sonic Adventure 2 performed. Dreamcast runs great on this HDD. Keep in mind though, I am running a pretty beefy PC, an i7 with a 4070 and 64 gigs of RAM, but looks good. So then we get into the PlayStation library, and the PlayStation library, very good. All the great RPGs are there. As a palate cleanser from playing Chrono Trigger earlier, I played the superior Chrono Cross. I know I'm probably the only person who thinks that. Then I went down to play Einhander, very happy graphically. All the music is there. The PlayStation games run great on the Super Game HDD. Now moving on to PlayStation 2, and this is where the library becomes a problem. One thing I have with Kin Hank, issue I have, is they don't put all the best games on there. A lot of shovelware gets on there, while some of the more exciting RPGs from that era aren't there, like Wild Arms and the Final Fantasy games. But, you know, you've still got a pretty impressive library, and there's no duplication with games that are PlayStation that are actually running on Xbox. These are actually PlayStation 2 games. So I checked out Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, runs really well, graphics look great, so very happy with the emulation for PlayStation 2. Library, not so much, but emulation, so far so good. I had fun playing Deadly Alliance. Then, of course, I went and checked out one of the rare RPG-type games that they actually include in the library, Shining Force EXO, and that ran pretty well, so I'm excited to go back there. Moving on, they actually have PlayStation 3 games on this. Of course, they don't have the full PlayStation 3 library. Much like PlayStation 2, a lot of those big games you want aren't going to be found there, but some are. I've got to say the emulation was pretty good. Here I am playing Ridge Racer 7. Looks beautiful on my PC. I will throw in the reminder again that your games are only going to look as good as your PC, but I was very happy with how Ridge Racer 7 played here. And then for some reason there is no Resistance 1 or 3, but you can play Resistance 2, which is a core PlayStation 3 game. This ran pretty well. I was happy with the experience. Moving on, we've got Xbox, and unlike the last HDD, they actually had Xbox games this time. These aren't PlayStation 2 games pretending to be Xbox. So, of course, I brought up one of the Xbox games that I actually had and always regretted not doing more with, which was Brute Force, and Brute Force ran really well on the emulator. No issues with music, video skipping, anything like that. Everything ran like it should. Then we moved on to Xbox 360, and to me, this is just so wild. We're up to this level with emulation here, but Xbox 360 is included. It doesn't have a full library, much like the PlayStation 3 and PlayStation 2, getting a partial library, but they do have some hardcore Xbox titles. Well, ones that work. I will tell you that I did have some crashes trying to play some Xbox 360 games through Retro Bat, but what I did was I went over to Big Box, loaded that up, and the Xbox 360 games work great. My advice, if you're playing something and it doesn't work in one emulator, switch over to another. That usually solves the problem and you're able to be up and running with your game, no sweat. Now, Xbox 360 does run well, but I will tell you, for some reason, it seems to be running a little bit dark. So moving on from there, we're going to get into a little bit more of the niche libraries like the Panasonic 3DO, and you've got a pretty complete library here, including the best home version of Street Fighter that was available back in the day, Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo on the Panasonic 3DO. Every time I play the 3DO, this is the first game I go to, and of course, you guys know I'm a big Sewer Shark fan on the Sega CD, so it's a treat to me to play what's considered to be the best version, Sewer Shark, on the 3DO. Now, moving on from there, we got some TurboGrafx 16 and actually the US library, including the US library of Blazing Lasers. You don't have to try to find what the Japanese one is like most emulators do. This runs really well. I've had some poor experiences with Blazing Lasers through emulation, but it's good here. And you also get the complete TurboGrafx CD library, the US library, so you can play the best version of Valis 3. Forget the Sega Genesis version. You want to play the TurboGrafx 16 CD version with all those cool recorded audio clips. Now, if you want Japanese PC Engine CD, don't worry, we do have the PC Engine CD copies as well as Castlevania Dracula X Rondo of Blood. Okay, so this is the part of the video where we get into a little bit of the really unethical part or piracy part, because we're going to be talking about more modern games that are currently available through Steam and other games for the big N. And you know how Nintendo feels about piracy, so keep that in mind when you're watching this. So like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these were called PlayStation 4 games or Xbox One games previously on other Kinhank consoles. They are properly naming them as Windows games this time, but they are available. This feels a little weird playing modern games that are currently out there on Steam, but here is my experience with Final Fantasy VII Remake. I've got to say, cutscenes look great and ran great, and the action itself played really well on my PC. I didn't have to download anything. It was running right off the HDD, and it ran fairly smoothly. Again, these are a lot of games I already have on my PC, but you know, there's some opportunity there for you guys to pick up a couple modern games you don't have. Again, kind of sketchy with this stuff. Then we move on to Nintendo, and one of the things I love is the entire GameCube library is available on this HDD. You know I'm going to have a ton of fun playing Luigi's Mansion. The game looks fantastic. All the Nintendo disc-based games look like they're HD versions here on the Kinhank hard drive. All play extremely well. Moving on from there, we want to check out some Mario Kart Double Dash. This is a game I actually never owned growing up. One of the few Mario Karts I never really got to experience, so super cool that now I can access it, and it looks great on the GameCube. From there, we're going into the Wii, and the Wii library is a little disappointing, kind of like PlayStation 2. There's a ton of that Wii shovelware we all know about, but you're not getting a lot of those games you really want. Here's a little Mario Kart Wii. It's really fun. It looks great, so much better than actually running the Wii through composite cables, but you are going to run into issues while playing Wii games because of the difference in controls. That Wii controller was so unique, and a lot of games need that, so they have to find different ways to, include it. Here I am playing New Super Mario Bros, and you're going to see one of those issues where the controller's asking you to wiggle it. We don't have the wiggle ability, so you're going to have to find another button on the controller to make the wiggle effect work, and I finally found it, but that is going to be one of the challenges with playing the Wii games. They also have WiiWare, which is an absolute treat because Nintendo took this on offline. Here I am playing Castlevania Adventure Rebirth. What a fantastic game. One I've never finished, and I beat pretty much all the Castlevania games, so very happy to see this included. Then we make all our way over to the Wii U, and this is where it gets really interesting. We're getting into the modern Wii games now. We can play stuff we've been dreaming about coming to the Nintendo Switch, like The Legend of Zelda, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess are both included. Xenoblade fans, I got some bad news for you. You're not going to get a lot of Xenoblade on this, so sorry about that, but it's a pretty interesting Wii library. Lots of fun games included, and they all work really well. Then we're moving on to Nintendo 3DS, and this is another one I'm excited to see here. You get a very interesting library, a lot of really expensive games like the Dragon Quest. The games really play well, and I like the way they have them formatted or outputted here on the screen. Very excited to be able to play these again. Then we move into the questionable stuff here. We're into Nintendo Switch. Now, most of the games in the Nintendo Switch are the, e-store type stuff, but there are some first-party games here, and this feels so wrong seeing some of these games on here. Gotta say, the library isn't the complete library, but it is pretty interesting. Here I am playing Super Mario Odyssey. I will tell you, this is not the North American version, but it runs really well off the HDD on my PC. Keep in mind, again, my PC is a little bit more beefed up than every PC, so, not everybody's experience will be the same, but I thought this ran really well and looked really good on the PC. The one that really surprised me to see on here was Nintendo's magnum opus from last year, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. This is, in fact, the North American version. It's all in English. You can play it here, and this is just what feels wrong here. It feels like this is too modern, but if you haven't played Tears of the Kingdom yet, you want to play it on your PC, it's on this hard drive, and I gotta tell you, it actually runs really well. Cutscenes ran really well, the graphics look good. I did notice some weird graphical stuff where sunlight came in, so it wasn't running perfectly. It's emulation, there's always going to be problems, but the experience was still relatively good and looked pretty good. When you get into the shading stuff and you'll see the light effects, that's where you see some of the graphical degradation, but it played pretty well. It feels so wrong to be playing this on something that isn't a Nintendo console, but we're here on a hard drive like this. Of course it's going to show up. So moving on from there, let's get into some arcade stuff. So we're going to go to Hyperspin Attraction. We can finally play some arcade stuff. Here I am playing one of my favorite arcade games, Golden Axe: The Revenge of Death Adder. This game is famously known for having some graphical issues during emulation, but I gotta say, it runs really well on the Super Game HDD. As you can see, we're gonna come up to the point after this boss fight where the graphical issues start to happen, where it goes into kind of the moving forward on the screen. Of course, I have a perfect boss battle against this boss because I've done it a million times. But you can see as it moves up, the graphics retain their values. There's no weird artifacts. And this actually has the arcade versions of Killer Instinct and Killer Instinct 2. They look pretty good. They run really well. Very surprised with emulation. So for me, a guy with Megacade, this would be perfect to run this on my TV with an arcade control panel for Megacade. Now, one thing that was a little bit of a letdown, I did try to play House of the Dead 2 with my Sinden light gun. I gotta be honest with you guys, I still don't know how to set the Sinden up, so I've got to do a little bit more work with that. It's supposed to work with this, and then I tried to play with the controller, it wasn't working, and there were a lot of graphical issues. This didn't work so well. Another game I was having some problems with, I went into Naomi, which has worked on previous consoles for me, but I was having some graphical issues trying to play Marvel vs. Capcom 2. The game was stuttering a little bit, which made the experience less than ideal, but I still could play Marvel vs. Capcom 2. It just wasn't as good as it should have been. Now we'll go into Techno Parrot, and this was you're going to see your more modern arcade games, something you'd see in a Dave & Buster's. Couldn't get Techno Parrot to work on the last hard drive they sent me, but happy to say it worked here. And here I am playing Daytona USA Champion Edition, that more modern Daytona that came out in modern arcades recently. This ran really well, really enjoyed the experience, and a game that I had never played before but had a ton of fun with was the new Batman Raw Thrills game. I think it was back in 2013. This was a ton of fun to play on my PC through the HDD. Very happy with this experience. Very happy Techno Parrot just worked out of the box this time. So guys, that's my look at the Kinhank Super Game HDD 12TB hard drive 5-in-1. Gotta say, I had a pretty good time with this. I noticed a lot of improvements over the last Hyperspin hard drive they sent out. This one works a lot better. Me personally, I don't really like playing with the decorations around the game or the frames, so very happy I can take those off. Very happy with the improvements to the game libraries. It's not perfect. I'm certainly missing a lot of my PlayStation 2 RPGs I would absolutely love to see on this, but it's gotten a lot better. One thing I am a little disappointed with is on the arcade side. Some of the issues I was having with Naomi trying to play Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and man oh man, House of the Dead 2 was a nightmare. It looked terrible, and I couldn't get the Sinden to work. I'm told it does work, I just haven't figured it out yet. There were some other quirky issues, like Xbox 360 didn't play under one emulator through RetroBat, so I had to go into Big Box, and there were other issues where Sega Saturn, through the Yabusa, I think it's called, the normal emulator for Saturn, was running the games at like 2 times the speed, so I had to change the emulator or switch over to Big Box. But other than that, most stuff was pretty easy to figure out. I could play this like right out of the box, and I wasn't having half the issues I had with the last hard drive. When it comes to the more modern games, it's cool they're there for people who want them, but me personally, I would leave the Nintendo Switch and PlayStation, 3, Xbox 360 stuff maybe, and the Windows game off this. Use some of that space to really extend the libraries of the retro games. That's what I'm here for. I realize that's just me though. Anyways guys, let me know in the comments down below, what do you think of the new Kinhank 12TB gaming HDD 5-in-1 console? Is this something you'd be interested in? I mean, essentially, it's an entire game library right there on one hard drive. I used to have a physical game library, shelves and shelves and shelves of stuff that cost me a fortune, and I can play more games for a lot cheaper just with this hard drive here. Thank you so very much for watching. This is Michael B. the Game Genie, and I'll talk to you next time.